Well, they look just like a real British rock and roll band, but they're not. They're the stars of a movie called This Is Spinal Tap, a comedy documentary we're going to be reviewing this week on At the Movies. And across the aisle from me, Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
Our next movie is named This Is Spinal Tap. I just want to start out by saying this is a good movie. This is not only one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time, it's also one of the smartest and most clever. It's a comedy that pretends to be a documentary about a British rock group named Spinal Tap, and this is a group of long-haired rock and rollers who are pushing 40 years old, and they're still out there on the road again. The movie was directed by Rob Reiner, who plays the part of the director, and in this scene he's interviewing some of the members of Spinal Tap about how they got their start.
So we became the Originals, right. And we had to change our name, actually.
Well, there's another group in the East End called the Originals, and we had to rename ourselves. And
the New Originals.
New Originals, yeah. And then they became
the Regulars. They changed their name back to the Regulars, and we thought, well, we could go back to the Originals, but what's the point?
We became the Thamesmen at that point.
Stop wasting my time.
That stage approach looks pretty old-fashioned, but here they are years later with a bright new staging idea. The great part there is when he's trying to maintain his cool for just that second when he wants to pretend that maybe the pod will open. Spinal Tap's tour gets worse after that. Their concerts are canceled, their manager quits, and they develop the most disconcerting habit of killing off all of their drummers. One of the amazing things about this film is how much it really does feel like a real documentary. We get the dumb questions and the funny answers, and meanwhile we can see the group disintegrating before our very eyes. And yet, it's all done subtly. They don't go for the obvious gag. There's never a moment when we feel they're going for a cheap laugh. This Is Spinal Tap feels like a documentary. It works as a great comedy, and it also succeeds in telling us the story of this very badly confused rock band.
I think it works because they have a terrific comic premise, because this film actually has something to say about the rock business, which is that there are a lot of bad bands out there, and they have some popularity. What they did, think about what they really did here. We get documentaries, when we think about it, it's worthy of a documentary, so make it about a serious, good product, and therefore you'll learn about the nature of the product by studying the serious. This film is really doing something quite special. It's saying you can learn just as much by studying something lousy. We learn just as much about the rock business, if you want to know, from this movie, with all of its funny stuff, as we do learn by studying the success of the Beatles in The Complete Beatles.
Sure, you see all about how they're going to package the album, how they advertise, how they tour, all the problems they have. And the other thing is, there's the story underneath, the story of the band and the relationships in the band that we pick up almost at the corner of the screen. One of the things I liked best about this movie was you had to be smart to watch it. You had to think a little bit in order to figure out everything that was going on. It didn't pound you over the head.
Shake hands with yourself then on that one, aren't you?
I really want to congratulate myself for my intelligence, and I'm sure you feel good about yours too.
Yeah, I got it real easy. I understood everything, more than you did. Coming up next at the movie...
Sure thing, and it's one of the warmest, most likable love stories I've seen in a long time. It stars a couple of movie newcomers. Their names are John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga, and they're students at a college in the East. Now, he likes her a whole lot from the very first moment that he sets eyes on her in English class, but she is engaged to some guy out in Los Angeles. So, Cusack's love life doesn't get anywhere until he hears from his old high school pal, who is now also in Los Angeles, and who promises him that if he comes to California for Christmas vacation, he's going to meet a sure thing. A golden California girl who was guaranteed to put out. The Beach Boys should have written a song about this.
They wrote about 20, I think, about her.
Well, Cusack thinks that sounds pretty good, so he signs up for a ride to the coast, and when the car pulls out, the girl he has a crush on is the other passenger in the back seat.
You guys know any show tunes?
That's a great idea. When the moon is in the 7th house.
And Jupiter lines with Mars.
Well, then peace will guide the planet.
And love
will steer the sky. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
They eventually fall in love, but they can't admit it, and when they finally get to L.A., they both turn up at the same dance with different partners. She with her fiancé, and he with the sure thing.
Hey, Sam.
Since when do you like to dance?
What else did Lance tell you about me?
He says you're a real gourmet.
Oh, yeah?
And you're a virgin.
What?
Ever have that experience at a dance when you're there with the wrong girl? This movie knows exactly how that felt. The best thing about The Sure Thing is the chemistry between the two stars, between Daphne Zuniga and John Cusack. They're really good together. And chemistry is a funny thing. You think about Mrs. Soulful, for example, a recent movie that depended on chemistry between Diane Keaton and Mel Gibson, and it just didn't have it. And then you look at this movie with a couple of unknowns who create characters that we really care about. The formula in this movie is predictable. It's a road movie. It's crossed with one of those great old Tracy and Hepburn plots where they fight until they kiss. But the movie's done with style and taste and tact, and it has an ending that made me feel really happy.
Well, I like it certainly more than a lot of the teenage films that I've seen around the last few weeks. And God, I have seen a dozen
This has
of
been
them.
teenage season, February,
Unbelievable.
teenage movie month.
And it's, you know, and we get it in the summer, so now it's teenage movie year, 12 months a year. The story is awfully pat. You could see where it was going. I think they could have tightened this thing up a little bit, and I would have liked it more. They're appealing. It's good. Not as great as
I'll
you
defend the story in the sense that although you can see where it's going, it takes so long to get there that it surprises you. These guys, you think they're going to jump in bed with each other in the first reel, and they do not. And so the tension develops, the relationship develops. We want this to happen. They develop a...
No.
You don't think so?
I knew they weren't going to jump in bed with each other. The surprise, and we give them some credit for that, the surprise is I thought there would be more of the California girl. And I liked that they didn't go that easy way and give us some kind of rip-off of 10 with him and the California girl rolling on the beach. That would have been the commercial choice. They stayed a little more faithful to the story, and that's why I lift it up a little bit and give it a grudging okay recommendation.
Okay, well, I'm very happy for you. So much for The Sure Thing.
The jury's still out on me. I'm Bill Harris. And I'm Rex Reed. And you are at the movies. Stand By Me, a movie about 4 boys coming of age on a 2-day adventure, finding themselves tested in ways they had never imagined. I generally tune out when I hear about a coming-of-age film. I didn't particularly enjoy doing it. I usually haven't enjoyed seeing anyone else do it. But I'm a sucker for writer Stephen King, always in print, sometimes on screen. And now comes Stand By Me, based on King's The Body, but having absolutely nothing to do with horror. Director Rob Reiner gives us Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell as 4 young boys growing up in rural Oregon in the late 1950s. On the verge of young manhood and the summer of the 7th grade, they're about to have the adventure of their young lives. And it all starts in the clubhouse.
You guys want to go see a dead body?
Learning the whereabouts of an unfortunate youngster for whom the whole town is searching, our boys set out to find the body and be heroes. But their real discoveries come along the way.
You're just a kid, Gordy. Oh, gee, thanks, Dad. Wish the hell I was your dad. You wouldn't be going around talking about taking these stupid shop courses if I was.
On their journey, our brave young adventurers face an entire day of deprivation, adventure, and camaraderie. And they learn that some shortcuts have their price. The tale is told through the eyes of Richard Dreyfuss, who narrates as young Gordy grown up to be a writer. I think that Stand By Me could be the sleeper hit of the year. Maybe it's only exactly right for those of us who can hum along with every nostalgic rock hit on the soundtrack. It is a terrific and touching and very funny film about growing up. It wears its heart right on the sleeve of its wrinkled jersey. Reiner's touch is right on target as his youngsters face a hostile world consisting of tough, bigger kids, those imponderables known as grown-ups, and the future. It's as entertaining, enjoyable, as warm as they come, and it brought back such memories of boyhood that I am dying to give someone a noogie.
I'd like to give everybody who made this movie a noogie. I thought it was one of the most boring pictures I've ever suffered through. I thought these 4 kids were the most impossible little putzes I've ever seen on film. And I'm pretty tough about what I can endure on film after 25 years of this, but I can't stand vomit scenes. There's a scene that goes on forever in this movie in which everybody on film throws up after a blueberry pie eating contest that I just couldn't watch. I remember turning to somebody next to me and saying, "What time is it?" And they said, "It's an hour after the movie began." I said, "The same day?"
The kids called it the Barbarama.
I thought that, first of all, there were no grown-ups anywhere in sight in the movie, so how can you say that the movie is about facing grown-ups?
Well, they speak of it. They talk about their fathers, who's one father who mishandles...
They talk entirely too much.
Oh, but I thought the talk was charming.
They never stop talking.
No,
and if you're a parent, you better be very careful about whether to send your kids to this movie or not.
Why?
Because these kids would shock a vessel full of merchant marines. I've never heard such filth coming out of the mouths of kids.
We all made talks about other kids' mothers, and we all looked at Annette Funicello's growing bosom on The Musketeers.
Any kid ever said anything about my mother like these kids, they wouldn't be around today to read Stephen King.
We do disagree here.
Coming up next,
The Princess Bride, and I'm going to say right now that I thought this was one of the funniest and most charming comedies that I've seen in a long time. It's a whimsical satire on swords and sorcery, told in the form of that story that Peter Falk is reading to his grandson. And like a lot of the best stories, it's about a beautiful princess who's in love with a poor commoner. Although as the story begins, she doesn't know yet that she's in love and that he's in love with her. You're going to hear Falk reading the story in this scene. I didn't know that was Billy Crystal.
I didn't know it was Billy Crystal either. I thought it couldn't be Mel Brooks. It sounds like Mel Brooks.
There was something about the voice. I wanted to look at the cast at the end and see. I thought Billy Crystal.
Fabulous.
The Princess Bride is a strange combination of satire, romance, and swashbuckling special effects, and somehow it works on all of those levels. It's the new movie by Rob Reiner, who made the funniest satire of recent years in his fake rock and roll documentary. This is Spinal Tap. And this new movie is much gentler, it's more whimsical, but it's also very funny, partly because Robin Wright makes such a good romantic princess, and partly because every single supporting character is such a complete weirdo, including Billy Crystal as Miracle Max, and also, of course, Wally Shawn, who plays the leader of the band of guys who kidnap him.
Andre the Giant is cast as a giant. I mean, and what a giant he makes. I think it's a supporting cast, and the script is funny. I mean, somebody spent a lot of time...
William Goldman.
Right, it's based on the William Goldman novel, and there is good writing here, and these people are funny, and it's romantic. And Peter Falk is cute in his interplay with the kid.
Yeah.
The kid wants him to speed through. Is this going to be a kissing scene, he says from time to time? Then he, with the eels, he gets all excited and wants Falk to read faster. A charming film for both adults and kids.
Yeah, that's the important thing, because I think adults will get a lot out of it, too, because of its little kind of digs and asides and little moments of satire and so forth that really add to the basic underlying charm of the whole thing.
Very fun. Our next film is sort of an Annie Hall clone romantic comedy. It's called When Harry Met Sally, and it's Rob Reiner's latest film since The Princess Bride, and it stars Billy Crystal as a young man who is cynical about how men and women relate to each other.
What I'm saying is, and this is not a come on in any way, shape, or form, is that men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
That's Meg Ryan as Sally. Years later, they meet again and try to establish a friendship.
Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?
They do become friends, which amazes Harry as he explains to his best male buddy.
I can say anything to her.
Are you saying you can say things to her you can't say to me?
No, it's just different. It's a whole different perspective.
The script was written in part by Nora Ephron, and it has a certain maturity.
I'm too structured. I'm completely closed off.
But in a good way.
It's very difficult to write contemporary comedy, and When Harry Met Sally, while it's not in the same class as Annie Hall, the film does have some cute moments and a touch of the anguish of modern relationships with partners having maybe too much time on their hands. Actually, it's a better comedy than social commentary, with one hilarious scene involving Meg Ryan proving to Billy Crystal that most women, most any woman, can fake sexual response. A marginal thumbs up for me.
I give it a thumbs up, and I liked it a lot. I thought that the dialogue was very funny, that the characters were very attractive. I like this Meg Ryan, who was in Inner Space and DOA, two movies that didn't get probably the attention that both of them deserved. And I think that Crystal here is so tender. He's so warm. That's the key to his performance here, because everybody knows he's a stand-up comic and he can be wise and cynical and sarcastic.
Right.
But the way in which he apologizes to her a couple of times in the movie is something that I think is very hard for a male to do and a male actor to do, and he does it very well. But one thing I have a problem with you is with the scene that probably got the biggest laugh, and will get the biggest laugh, and that's when they're both sitting in a restaurant.
Right.
She says any woman can fake sexual climax. He doesn't believe her, and so she does it right there in the restaurant, you know, faking, you know. It's a funny scene. I agree it's a funny scene. I don't believe any woman would ever do that. I didn't believe she would do it. I don't believe any woman would do that.
Yeah, but it's a movie.
Well, but it's a movie that pretends to a realism that scene violates.
I don't think that the film is all that real. That's where I find it, the funny thing, and I compare it with Annie Hall, and there's a lot in the film that is very similar to Annie Hall. That's where the film started to suffer for me by comparison, because you know, Annie Hall, to me, was a faultless picture. I mean, every line counted, and every line seemed top of the head stuff. There was times here where the stuff didn't work. Well, but that's a funny bit.
Well, it is a funny bit. I'm not saying it isn't a funny bit, but it shows, in a way, one of the weaknesses of the movies, that they will go for the gag even if it violates the character. And Reiner, I think, is inviting comparisons to Woody Allen because he has the cutaways to the old couples who are talking. That's something that
their relationship.
And also, he uses the same kind of music that Allen would use, and he uses the same kind of structure. But still, I mean, in a way, it's unfair to compare it to Annie Hall.
No, it's not unfair. We do that all the time.
It's a very entertaining movie.
It's entertaining, but we do that. We compare pictures of kind all the time.
That's right. So we were right after all. I guess you're right.
I think the word you were right is what you were looking for.
Thank you very much.
Called Misery, and just as with his film Stand By Me, also based on a Stephen King book, director Rob Reiner brings a lot of humor to the screen, and that makes the psychological horror of this picture work so well. James Caan plays a successful novelist who has written a whole series of potboilers featuring a female character named Misery. When he has a car accident after writing his latest book at a rural getaway, he's saved by a strange woman who used to be a nurse and says she's his #1 fan.
Your shoulder was pretty badly dislocated. It was a little stubborn, but I finally popped it back in. What I'm most proud of is the work I did on those legs.
That's actress Kathy Bates in a comically chilling performance as the fan. It turns out that she is keeping him captive in that bedroom, pretending the phones are not working. She doesn't like the new book he's written.
You dirty bird.
It seems the only person who can save James Caan is the town sheriff, a crusty sort nicely played by the always appealing Richard Farnsworth.
I figured that if I can't find Paul Sheldon, at least I can find out what he wrote about.
Quite steadily, the tension is turned up in the house where James Caan is being held captive. He's managed to get out of his room for an exploratory look around the house, and that freaks out his fan.
Paul, do you know about the early days at the Kimberley diamond mine? Do you know what they did to the native workers who stole diamonds?
Her matter-of-fact tone is really very good there, and that little cross that's around her neck all the time takes on an ironic, threatening quality. Director Rob Reiner does a very good job of mixing horror and humor here. His shooting style is crisp and clean. We remember the detail of individual shots, a bobby pin on the floor, an empty telephone, a smudge on a piece of typing paper. Barry Sonnenfeld, who also photographed the beautiful Miller's Crossing, he did the fine camera work here too. And Kathy Bates is equal to the juicy role she's been given to play. That's why Misery is the most enjoyable, if sometimes gruesome, entertainment.
Now, this is basically a movie with two people in it, apart from the real nice supporting performances by people like Richard Farnsworth, and they're both good. And I think there was a trap here in that both of them could have easily overacted. He could have turned into some kind of a real suffering martyr, and she could have turned into some sort of avenging angel. And her sweetness and humor in the role is what kind of sells it in a way. It makes her even scarier.
Also, James Caan, who has been good but erratic in his career, plays the guy as at the top of his intelligence. He's smart. He's ticked off. You know, it's not done as the world's greatest novelist. He's a regular person. It's a very nice, even-keel performance on his part.
So often I think Stephen King's books often seem to be based on autobiographical things that he finds in his own life, and he must have gotten a lot of letters from fans who didn't like the way some of his books turned out, and this is his way of extending that a little further.
It is A Few Good Men, and it has more than a few good men involved in it. Rob Reiner directs Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in a court-martial drama about Who bears the ultimate responsibility for a Marine hazing incident that gets wildly out of hand when a young soldier dies? Cruise, in one of his best performances, and he's given many, plays a wise guy Navy lawyer assigned to defend the two soldiers who did the hazing and are now accused of murder. Here he offers his clients a quick deal he's arranged.
We have a code, sir. Well, zippity-doo-dah. You and your code plead not guilty. You'll be in jail for the rest of your life.
Cruise has two colleagues on the case, played by Demi Moore and Kevin Pollak. They argue with him to stay with the case and take it to trial.
Another lawyer won't be good enough. They need you.
Cruise's eventual defense of the two soldiers will be that it was the base commanders who indirectly gave the order to haze the young Marine.
And now you think you can get him to just say it? I think he wants to say that he made a command decision and that's the end of it. He eats breakfast 300 yards away from 4,000 Cubans that are trained to kill him.
And, of course, it's Jack Nicholson who plays the gung-ho Marine commanding officer, the centerpiece of the film, his mano-a-mano showdown with Cruise at the trial.
Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg?
They're terrific together. The script of A Few Good Men offers few surprises, except one, and that is that Tom Cruise and Demi Moore do not have a love affair in the movie, and that's really refreshing. Also notable is that Tom Cruise more than holds his own against Jack Nicholson. Because of his looks, Tom Cruise is always underestimated as an actor, but against Paul Newman, Dustin Hoffman, and now Jack Nicholson, he proves they're equal. This movie is just good. It's not great, but Cruise is better than that. He's the reason to see A Few Good Men.
Well, I agree with you about Tom Cruise, and I also think that Jack Nicholson gives a very interesting performance in this movie, a very watchable performance, but I would zero in on something that you correctly said, and that is there are no surprises in this movie.
Right.
Not only are there any surprises in the general sense, but in particular, the script fatally undermines the key scene in the whole movie, which is Nicholson's big courtroom scene. And that's because in a scene that's set the night before, Tom Cruise correctly predicts and explains and outlines for his friends exactly what his courtroom strategy is going to be and what he expects Nicholson to do.
Right.
And then the next day in court, Nicholson, everything goes according to plan. Nicholson does exactly what was said. Now, why would a screenplay give away a surprise like that? Why didn't they figure we were smart enough that we'd just be able to see the courtroom scene and figure out for ourselves what it was that Cruise was trying to do, and then see if Nicholson falls for it or not? Because by telling them about it in advance, it completely destroys that scene. I give the movie thumbs down because it doesn't know how to handle the climax.
Well, I think I probably would have been able to have predicted the climax even if they had.
Yeah, but I mean, why do you want somebody in the movie to predict it for you? I mean, that way you can feel clever,
No. It is a predictable movie. I'm just surprised that you're voting thumbs down because I thought all the way through, I knew the story. All the way through, I was watching Cruise's character and watching him develop, and I thought that was interesting.
Not only did you know the story, but it's almost, within the first 20 minutes of this movie, you can figure out what the entire story is going to be, more or less. So then it's only performances, and it seems to me that if the performances had been linked to a screenplay, that was a lot more interesting.
The screenplay was surprising for what it didn't do with Demi Moore character. That's one thing you would have known.
That character was originally a man. I'm convinced of that, and they made it into a woman without rewriting it in any other way.
But that's great. I mean, wouldn't you expect the rewrite to include a love relationship? Sure you would.
I would expect it to include more of an awareness in the two people, that one was a male and one was a female. In this movie, they both seem to be unaware of that interesting fact.
No, I don't think so.
A boy played by Elijah Wood gets fed up with his folks in that scene from North and decides that since they don't pay attention to him, he will divorce them and go looking for a new set of parents. And that's the setup for one of the most thoroughly hateful movies of recent years, a movie that makes me cringe even when I'm sitting here thinking about it. Look at this scene, for example, where young North is in court trying to dump his parents who are comatose with shock. Then there's a series of auditions as would-be parents from around the country try out for the role of North's new mom and dad. Dan Aykroyd and Reba McEntire are a couple of absurd Texans who want to adopt him. Next stop, the Hawaiian Islands, where we get some amazingly tasteless dialogue about why these two people don't have children.
In fact, there's only one barren area on all of our islands. Unfortunately, it's Mrs. Holt.
A mysterious character keeps turning up on North's travels. He's played by Bruce Willis as an Easter bunny, a Western ranch hand, a beachcomber, and a Federal Express driver who gets in lots of product plugs.
Willard, Some kind of guardian angel?
Well, I guess you can say that. Because in a manner of speaking, we at Federal Express feel that we are guardians. Guardians of your most important packages and priority communique.
I hated this movie as much as any movie we've ever reviewed in the 19 years we've been doing this show. I hated it because of the premise, which seemed shockingly cold-hearted, and because this premise is being suggested to kids as children's entertainment, and because everybody in the movie was vulgar and stupid, and because the jokes weren't funny, and because most of the characters were obnoxious, and because of the phony attempt to add a little pseudo-hip philosophy with a Bruce Willis character. Now, I think Elijah Wood is a fine young actor, and of course, Rob Reiner, the director, has made one terrific movie after another, so I would prefer to consider North as just a very unfortunate aberration in these otherwise admirable careers.
Well, I mean, I think you got to hold Rob Reiner's feet to the fire here. I mean, he's the guy in charge. He's saying that this is entertainment. It's deplorable. I mean, there isn't a gag that works. You couldn't write worse jokes if I told you to write worse jokes.
And, of course, you could always...
The ethnic stereotyping is appalling.
Yes.
It's embarrassing. You feel unclean as you're sitting there. It's junk. First-class junk.
And then the idea that kids might be lured in by television ads to see this movie about a little child who, you know, throws away his parents and goes shopping for a new set. It's really...
Any subject could be done well. This is just trash, Roger.
Okay.
The worst movie of 1994, the movie that Roger and I each would least like to sit through a second time. The single worst picture of 94. And I thought about Mixed Nuts, which just came out at Christmas time, but my choice is another cataclysmically unfunny comedy. It's called North, directed by Rob Reiner, of all people, written by Hans Bell, about a boy named North, played by Elijah Wood, who wants to divorce his parents, and so this is sort of trading mom and dad. And the parents he interviews as possible replacements are just one dreadful, unfunny stereotype after another in a film that often looks like outtakes from old travel logs. And here are the Eskimo parents he interviews.
Eskimo pie.
That's supposed to be humor in the 1990s? North also manages to be quite offensive in a single shot and a joke about a praying Hasidic Jew testing pants, a totally thoughtless, tasteless scene. I know what went wrong with this movie. Everything. It's shabby and it's mean.
Well, Gene, I had to think a long time to pick my worst picture of 1994, about a tenth of a second. And believe it or not, it's the same one that you chose.
Oh, well, this was a
North.
stunning. It's a stunning.
We kept this a secret from each other, and unfortunately, I think I like it even less than you do, if that's possible. My choice is also North. All of the many different kinds of parents young North auditions have one thing in common. They appear in scenes of startling stupidity and offensive caricature. And one scene in particular that hits a new low in bad taste is this one, where the Eskimo would-be parents send their aged father, played by Abe Vigoda, off to die along with other members of the community who have outlived their usefulness. What a heartwarming message for kids. When it came time to write my newspaper review of this movie, I don't know, something just came over me. My fingers on the keyboard had little minds of their own. I was rolling along, writing my usual scathing but civilized comments, when suddenly a sinister inner force took over and I found myself typing, and I quote, "I hated this movie. Hated, 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 hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it."
I hated this movie. Hated, 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 hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it. Hated the sensibility that thought anyone would like it. Hated the implied insult to the audience by its belief that anyone would be entertained by it. Well, I thought this, you know, if you read between the lines, it's not that bad.
Unquote, and so on. Altogether, I used the word hated 10 times. I have to give North credit for one thing, though. When I was preparing for this show, I didn't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out which was the year's worst movie, so it saved me time.
You know, I talked to the writer of this picture. I was so thunderstruck by it, Alan Zweibel, and I think that maybe these guys and Rob Reiner are using a sort of an old-style comedy that really has just gone out of fashion. It was funny sometimes when Mel Brooks took some of these caricatures in the early 70s, but he did it with a kind of liveliness here. This stuff just clangs and clangs.
Maybe do what more broadly or with more burlesque, but here, I mean, the idea of a kid shopping for new parents is not intrinsically funny, and so unless you really know how to handle it, you're really shopping for disaster.
It didn't work with Trading Mom, and it didn't work for North. The American President, and it's a flat-out winner, one of the year's best, a terrific old-fashioned entertainment with a thoroughly contemporary screenplay by Aaron Sorkin, who can write dialogue with the very best, and I just have to credit him first. What a writing job. The American President is a glorious romance set in the White House as the widowed President of the United States, convincingly played by Michael Douglas, takes a liking to a feisty environmental lobbyist played in a dazzling performance by Annette Bening. She's just questioned his commitment to the environment, and he's invited her into his office for a chat.
Mr. President, what you saw in there was nothing more than vanity run amok.
Are you under the impression I'm mad at you?
Another solid character in this wonderful story, the Chief of Staff and the President's best friend from college, well played by Martin Sheen.
What would happen if I called Sidney Wade and asked her to be my date at the state dinner on Thursday evening?
Totally infatuated with her, and Bening makes you see why. He calls her up for a date, the first one he'll have in his 3 years in office.
Oh, that's it. That's why I was calling.
And then there is the first date. Again, smart writing, and Annette Bening is absolutely luminous.
Do I date a lot?
Yeah.
No, how about you?
Me?
The American president is very smart and quite credible about politics as the president finds himself suddenly under attack from the Republican senator running against him, played by Richard Dreyfuss.
Networks and newspapers like ratings and circulation, for all the bitching we do about liberal bias in the press when it comes to a good character debate.
The press is an unwitting accomplice.
Director Rob Reiner deserves a lot of credit because at a time when we're all very smart video-wise about the White House and press briefings, everybody watching CNN and C-SPAN, he has created a film that feels real and never glitches. And Michael Douglas is at the top of his contemporary man form. All in all, The American President is a glorious, old-fashioned, yet sparkling new entertainment. I can't recommend it any higher.
I thought it was terrific. When I wasn't laughing, I was smiling.
Right.
And then there were the heart-tugging moments. It's very hard to make a good love story. It's really hard to make a good comedy.
Right.
It's really hard to make an intelligent movie, and it's almost impossible these days to make a good political picture, and
Right.
Rob Reiner has done all four.
Yeah.
This is a terrific movie.
Well,
really
you know,
is.
the other picture, I mean, people thrilled to Apollo 13 and said, you know, this is the kind of entertainment that Hollywood can make best. Well, this is the other kind, too.
Yeah.
And we haven't had one quite like this in an awfully long time. I keep saying how great Annette Bening looks. And I don't mean it just as a comment on her physical beauty.
No.
This is coming out of her soul.
Yeah, it's personality.
It is.
And that's why the president is attracted to her. Yeah.
She is really something in this film.
You know, Rob Reiner's last movie was North, and that was
our selection of the worst of the year.
I said I hated it, I hated it, I hated it. It's nice that Reiner's next film, I can say I loved it.
Our next film is Ghosts of Mississippi, an earnest new film from director Rob Reiner about a brave attorney's attempt to convict the killer of Mississippi civil rights leader Medgar Evers, gunned down in his driveway by a sniper in 1963. Of course, there's inherent drama in the story. We want to see the guilty man punished. But I think this story does a poor job of telling us just who Medgar Evers was and what stakes were being played for. Whoopi Goldberg plays the slain leader's wife, who pursues the case with a local district attorney, Greg T. Nelson, 30 years after two earlier trials have failed to achieve a conviction.
Now, I don't expect you to understand the pain and suffering that my family and I have gone through, but I did come here thinking that this office might want to see justice finally served.
The case is reopened one more time, and an earnest young prosecutor played by Alec Baldwin talks with his new wife about his assignment.
If you want to give this thing up, I understand.
The man on trial for the killing is an acknowledged racist named Byron D. LeBeckwith, played with gusto by James Woods. His free-flowing racism is his leading trait.
Are you standing here and admitting to me that you
killed Medgar Evers? What if I did?
You know, I know I would have much preferred to see a documentary on this subject rather than this Hollywood version that is well-meaning but so safe. Ghosts of Mississippi is not as special as it would like to be. I think you know about this picture, Roger, right from the description of Whoopi Goldberg as the slain leader's wife. Alec Baldwin is the crusading attorney. And so, as much as you feel for the material, this is a soft treatment.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful that this guy was brought to justice 30 years later, but it must be ironic for the ghost of Medgar Evers to think that at last a movie was made about him, and his only scene consists of getting out of a car in a driveway and being shot dead. And then as for the Whoopi Goldberg character, she is played, this is not one of Whoopi Goldberg's good performance. She spends most of it on the telephone saying, yeah, well, I don't believe you're really going to do it.
There's no writing.
You don't really understand who Medgar Evers was, what he did. The movie is about the brave attorney and about the bad guy. They're both white guys. It seems to me that maybe the Medgar Evers story should star a black guy. That's the way I felt.
That's what I let it off. I didn't learn anything about Medgar Evers, and you know that another kind of filmmaker would have started out with documentary material of who Medgar Evers.
Set him up a little bit,
So then his death really stands for something.
At first, it was a romance made in heaven as comedy writer Bruce Willis met a goofy temp worker played by Michelle Pfeiffer in that scene. But now their marriage has turned sour, and most of the new film, The Story of Us, consists of the unhappily married couple fighting or refusing to talk to each other at all. The movie was directed by Rob Reiner, who also plays Willis's best friend and supplies him with some cornball philosophy.
What are you saying? You and Rachel stay together because you're afraid? In a word, yes. And you're okay with that? In 3 words, yes and no. See, it's not that simple. You're looking for clear-cut answers. In reality, there is nothing clear-cut. Life is not clear-cut.
Each partner has a scene of dinner with friends who complain about the opposite sex.
Mother, suddenly all you're aware of is that there are too many wet towels on the floor, he's hogging the remote, and he's scratching his back with a fork.
They keep up appearances before their children, but when the kids are out of the room, we see their real relationship. Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer are people that we like, and why in the world did Rob Reiner think we wanted to see them be miserable for 90 minutes? Especially since the movie is so shallow and lightweight that it has no useful insights into marriage or much of anything else. After a while, I felt like you do when you're in a restaurant and the people at the next table are fighting, you just want to get up and move. I mean,
At risk of agreeing with you, I did not want to sit through a movie theater with a bunch of other people watching a couple fight for 90 minutes.
I know.
As a kid, I used to hide under my bed when my folks were fighting. I don't want to watch that. There were some nice sprinkled bits of comedy provided by Rita Wilson through this film. They were nice, and there was some humorous, clever, but I wanted this couple to break up. I didn't want to see them together. They spent the whole time fighting.
That's exactly the way I felt. And, you know, even when they show the happy times in the past, they're contrived, like the couple that they meet in Venice. I mean, that belongs in a different kind of movie.
Please.
And as you sit there, and they're so cruel and mean and heartless and broken-hearted toward each other, and they have all of these communication breakdowns, and you want to say, get me to another movie.
It was like a big old therapy session. And in fact, the part that really sent me over the edge, Roger, was these confessionals to camera a la Real World. I'm so over that. I think it is overdone, and it did nothing to help this movie, which I thought was at best mediocre.
You got it.
I'm Richard Roeper.
And I'm A.O. Scott from the New York Times.
We kick it off with our first movie. It stars those great lions in winter, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. Now, I'm not going to tell you the bucket list is a unique or unpredictable or deep journey, because it's not. It's the Grim Reaper version of Grumpy Old Men, and at times it was so corny I was rolling my eyes. And yet I'm recommending it mainly because of the performances from Nicholson and Freeman. Even with material that's just above mediocre, they are so much fun together.
How about now?
And that's Sean Hayes, who's actually restrained and very funny here as the assistant to Nicholson's gazillionaire, Edward Cole. Freeman plays auto mechanic Carter Chambers. Both men are told they have about a year to live, hence the bucket list.
Kiss the most beautiful girl in the world? How do you propose doing that?
Volume. All right, so that's a contrived setup, and the travelogue of senior citizen X Games stuff gets a little repetitive, but we also get some perfectly rendered scenes, as when Carter tries to reconcile Cole with his long-estranged daughter.
Everyone's afraid to die alone. I'm not everyone.
All right, Tony, I realize I'm almost apologizing for this positive review. That's because maybe I should. I am aware of the problems with the bucket list, from that too cutesy title to the problematic plot to the sometimes cheesy special effects. This film falls right in the middle of Rob Reiner's career as a director. Certainly not as strong as Spinal Tap or Misery or The Princess Bride, but nowhere near as bad as North. And the problems aside, the scenes with Freeman and his family are strong, as is the subplot about Nicholson and the daughter. And even when they're working with this material, which is just above average, it's Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. On any filmgoer's bucket list should be seeing these two legends playing off one another, so there you have it.
Apology accepted. This is just a
No.
This movie for me was like an argument for euthanasia. Not these two great actors who I hope live forever and do lots more great work, but I just wish someone would come along and put a bullet in my head. I have to say, I didn't feel a single moment of authenticity or insight or surprise. And I felt like these two guys, yes, they're wonderful actors, but they were phoning it in. I really didn't feel either one of them doing anything.
See, Tony, that's where
like
you and I will part ways, because, I mean, as I've said now a couple of times, I agree the material is at best, you know, average. You're saying it's much below average. But Nicholson in particular, Tony, I don't think he phoned it in at all. I think it was, you know, sometimes over the top, but really threw himself into this role. So, again, for the performances, I'm saying put the bucket list on your bucket list of things to do.
I would say put it on your list of things to avoid. But it's interesting. You have one actor who's played God and another one who's played the devil, and the result is purgatory.
Hello.
Grandpa? Maybe you could come over and read it again to me tomorrow.
As you wish.